families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Families Divided TV. Robert Garza turned his pain into purpose when he was drafted into this battle after enduring 43 plus false allegations and spending over $700,000 in the process. The hardships he faced ignited a determination to change the system, leading to the development of new bills aimed at reforming family law. He's now focused on spreading the word through social media, educating others, rallying advocates, and pushing for the implementation of these new laws in every state. You're going to get a lot out of this episode tonight. Robert really is doing a great work, and I hope many others will join him and ourselves, Family Access Fighting for Children's Rights, as we begin next year fighting for better family law. We're going to be right back in just a moment with Robert Garza after this important message.
Divorce and co-parenting are a major life interruption for families, especially the kids, but also for parents and grandparents. And it's even worse in blame-filled, high-conflict cases. When parents engage in alienation by turning the kids against the other parent or grandparents, kids suffer. They're denied the opportunity to build the 4 big skills necessary for future resilience. New Ways for Families online class can help. Parents learn to use our popular BIF and EAR skills to calm the conflict and stop the hostile emails and texts. And we even have a class for kids and parents to learn together. Research shows a 75% improvement in joint parental decision-making after this course is taken, plus overall improvements for kids' well-being. Don't wait to make this affordable investment in your children's future and improve your well-being too. Start learning new ways for your family today at conflictplaybook.com.
Hi, my name is Robert Garza. I turned my pain into purpose, went through family court. It took me about 15 years to get to where I'm at now. But my children were thrown into this when they were about 1 and 3 years old. They're 15 and almost 18 now. And so I learned a lot in this process, and hopefully I can teach you some things. It wasn't easy at first, and it's probably kind of what you're going through now. And when you first start the process, you think that you're the only one going through this, but you're not. There's other people. I didn't know there were so many people in this until I got onto social media and started looking around. This is a war that you were drafted into. It's something that you cannot get away from, and it's the only lawsuit that you can file that you already know when you file it that you're going to win, because at the end of it, even if your ex doesn't want, or the other person doesn't want to get divorced, they still approve it no matter what. So it's the only type of lawsuit that you can file that the outcome is going to be in the end that you win. When I went through this, everything was kind of peaceful at first, and I went through about 30 days after the divorce was final, my ex came back after me using false allegations to gain the upper hand in family court. And that's an issue because perjury is a state jail felony in every state, but the problem is a lot of judges don't prosecute for it. And so it allows these people to play games in the family court system, and they do get the upper hand pretty quickly. Usually they don't mean a lot by it. They do it, that perjury with false allegations and protective orders, restraining orders, to gain the upper hand. And a lot of people know, like attorneys, they use it as a tactic. And so they know when they do, and they remove you from the child's life, that you're willing to do whatever it is that they're asking, whether it's child support or less time or anything like that. That's a huge issue. And so hopefully with some of these bills that we're passing here in Texas will alleviate that. I was able to do one here in Texas, but not before spending over $700,000 in family court. And so when my ex started this, I thought, okay, here's $10,000 retainer, another $10,000 retainer, thinking that this is going to be solved, and it never was. And so in family court, if you don't like what you get, you can keep refiling. And so when you keep refiling, you have to go through the game. And before long, we had amicus attorneys, we had guardian ad litems, we had social studies, psych evals, we had parent facilitators. And so we ran the gamut on this. And before I knew it, it was about $700,000, and finally got to final trial. Whenever my ex started these false allegations, she wouldn't make them directly to CPS herself. And I really didn't want to go on social media and tell people how she did it, because until there was a fix. Well, now there's a fix, but she would go to a mandatory reporter, school counselor, therapist, doctor. She would shop the kids around, and she would make statements to them. Well, since they're mandatory reporters by law, that anyone that says anything like she was saying, starving, dehydrating the kids, and that's what it started at first. And then after that, she went really like war, and said that I was molesting the kids. And so once they start the investigation, she would run to, well, back up. So once she would say this to a mandatory reporter, they had to report it to CPS. So once CPS documented that this report came in, which would probably take about a day or two, she would call CPS. They would have an open CPS investigation. They give her the report number. She would run with that report number to the court to get a protective order, restraining order, an emergency one, and the court would grant it. The court didn't know that it started from her allegations to the mandatory reporter, or where it came from. And the only you can get CPS report is through a judge can get an unredacted one. So if the judge ever wants to see it, then they could see it by subpoenaing the records. The other way is doing a home study. The home study can get a copy of those, and it shows who made the reports and everything else. The problem is you're going to see it as a bunch of mandatory reporters and not who made the allegation. So then you'll have to go back to them and get that done. It's a lot of work, but once we were able to do that, we figured out that who was making these allegations and how it was happening. So fast forward about 10 years, we get to final trial. But all through those 10 years, I was being supervised. She was running the gamut with, each one of these allegations. It would take 30 to 60 days to rule out. Then whenever they would rule it out, we would get back into court, and that took a while too, because opposing counsel was playing games with that also. And so once we were in there, we would ask for the time back. Well, the judge never gave the time back. She was like, well, we just took the time on precaution. Let's just move forward. It's water under the bridge. But after so many times of going through this, I was like, no. So when my attorney pushed the matter, the judge said, okay, we'll save it for final trial. Well, because of all the delays and COVID and everything else, final trial took about 10 years to get to. But once we did get there, the judge still didn't give the time back. So once I got out of family court, I thought, because I knew nothing about how to pass laws like that, so ended up going to Trump and or President Trump, and also Ted Cruz and a bunch of other people, and even our Texas Attorney General and the governor of Texas, asking them what they could do for me because of these issues. And I told them, that I have a solution for it. Well, they all said that they can't pass laws and that I'd have to go to my senator or my House representative. So that's what I did. And I went to Angela Paxton here in Texas. She's my state senator. And I showed her that I had a solution to this problem. She thought it was an amazing idea, submitted it to the Senate, and it went through the Senate and the House. David Cook also championed the same bill in the House. So I had a House bill and a Senate bill going through. And once they went through both, then they merged it to one and ended up going the first time, which is amazing, bipartisan, didn't matter if they were Republican or Democrat, and unanimous. And so it was such an amazing bill. And what it did is that when you take a parental right away on a precaution, kind of like with a protective order, restraining order, and CPS was involved, when CPS rules it out, then you get the time back that was taken by the court only on precaution. And what it does is it disincentivizes people using false allegations because there is no gifts and prizes at the end. If you are taking someone's possession time, let's just say for spring break, then when they rule it out, then you're going to get 2 spring breaks in a row. Same thing with Christmas. If you try that big Christmas holiday, you're going to miss your Christmas holidays 2 in a row. Or if it's the weekends, then you're going to miss your weekends whenever they return the child. So when they return the child, they return the time. And it doesn't stop people from making a real allegation, but it does stop the false allegations. And so that was in Texas, it was SB 718, and it's called Time Taken, Time Back. And so in Texas, that you can't do that anymore. And so fast forward a little bit, so that went into effect 2023. And then my ex started doing interference with child custody. Now, when she started doing that, she would, let's just say, take the kids out of school before my time and then take them out of the state or somewhere. And so I couldn't pick them up. So I had to figure out how to fix this also. So I talked to the cops and called the police, and they said it's a civil matter. Well, it's not a civil matter. It's only a civil matter if you file it in family court, and that's what they want you to do. But it's also a criminal matter in every state. In Texas, or you can Google it, it's called interference with child custody, and you can Google it for whatever state you're in. It's a state jail felony, and here's how it works. When you call the cops, or even if you don't, you can go to the police station and say, I want to report a crime. By law, they have to take your statement, and once they do, then they have to give it to an investigator in the youth division, because it has to do with children. When they find probable cause, then that will get turned over to the DA in whatever county you're in, and then the DA will turn it over to a grand jury to indict, and then the grand jury will turn it over to the sheriff's department to go arrest the offending parent. If you look at all those resources, this is why it's such an issue, and it also takes probably 6 to 7 months from point A, from you making the report, to point B, to getting in front of a grand jury and then doing something about it. All this time, and if they did it the whole time, you would lose several months with the child. So to save all those resources and all that time, I've made it easier. Because it's a state jail felony in every state, the problem is the DAs don't like prosecuting for it because they don't know if it's the first time, the second time. I went to several DAs here in Dallas and surrounding counties and said, hey, why aren't you prosecuting for this? Every one of them said, well, we didn't know if it was the first time. We don't want to put a parent in jail, give them a felony for the first time. So I came out with the 3-strike law. And what it does is the first time that the cop goes out there, he can give the offending parent a $500 fine. The second time is a $500 fine. The third time becomes a state jail felony, what it already is now. Now, what hopefully that will do is that nobody gets a fine and nobody gets a felony. I'm hoping that the law is kind of like the thread of a belt. If a kid's doing something, you're like, hey, I'm going to spank you with this. They see that belt and they're like, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm hoping that they see this law, and as soon as the cop comes out, they just pass the kids over and everything's good. Now, what this will do is, and what I've found is that with both of these laws in every state, it will stop the games. It will stop parental alienation before it starts. Parental alienation can only set in my opinion, if you can withhold the child for like 30 days. It gives the alienator enough time to alienate the child and brainwash them. And with constant contact, you can't do that. And so with this 3-strike policy, if you think about it, if let's just say first, third, and fifth weekends is when you get your children, and every, say, Thursday or something like that. So the first time that you have your kids, you have them on a Thursday. That's when you call the cops. They're offending, the parent won't give you the child. So that's number one fine. Then you have them on Friday. That's another day. So call them then. Then that's 2 times. By the third weekend of your third possession time, that's when it becomes a state jail felony. So they won't have enough time if you file quick enough or call them that the alienation will stick in. So this is a huge gift, and not gift. It's a huge law in your state and a gift for all kids and parents, because when you combine both of these bills, first of all, they won't make false allegations because it disincentivizes it for the time taken, time back bill. And then if you have the 3-strike law, then it disincentivizes them hijacking the kid for long periods of time or even interfering with their child custody. That's where all of these things stem from. All of your problems, if you think about it in family court, are mostly these 2 things. It's either false allegations or interference with child custody. If you want either of these in your state, reach out to Family Access and they can get a hold of me and I'll help you with your state. I'll even write the bills for you. And then you could take it to your state legislator, say you want this bill, or you can just reference the one in Texas and say, hey, we need one like that. And I'll be more than happy to get in on a Zoom call with you or anything like that. I wasn't always like this. I was a regular parent just like you. I was, pretty much a stay-at-home dad and played with my kids all the time, went to their school. That reminds me of another thing. So you can go to your child's school, and even if there's temporary orders stating that your ex has, let's just say, exclusive rights doesn't mean that they have exclusive right to the school to say who can come and who can go. The only thing exclusive right does is allows them to pick the school. That is it. You still have access to all their files, their teachers, everything else. But if you have a protective order, restraining order against you, then you may have an issue and do not go to the school if that's in place. But if there's not one, you can actually volunteer at the school. The one that I did here at my child's school was called Watchdog Dads. And I could literally go to their school, be with them in their classroom, sharpen pencils, pass out papers, grade papers, and my child was sitting right next to me, or or I was by the teacher. It's the most amazing thing because you can be with your child and you get to be with all their friends and everything else. And it was probably one of the most enjoyable things that I did. The other things that you can do is if you are alienated and you do get your kids back, you can take them to places that you already had memories at, and their own childhood memories will flood the alienation and hopefully rewrite it. That's kind of what happened to my kids when they took them away on one allegation. They were gone for about 3 months that I had no contact. And so when they came back, they were super scared. We even had a policeman show up to tell them that they had to come with me. The mom was right there, of course. But once they got away from the mom and we went to the zoo and the arboretum and stuff like that, a couple hours later, they were hanging on my back and my arms, and the alienation was going away. So when you're going through this, don't worry about it. well, of course, worry about it, but they're resilient, they'll come back. If you're going through false allegations, I would say put cameras in your house also, only the common rooms. They sell them, on Amazon, whatever. You can get Bluetooth ones. They, put them 30-second bursts where any movement and they'll record for 30 seconds. That one's a good one. I always had those, never had to use them. But once I put them in, all the allegations stopped because I let the mom know and opposing counsel that I had these in my home. And so because I had them, they stopped the games because there was nothing, there was no more allegations. So that works pretty well. Um, but I was just like you when I started this. And so just know that you'll get through it and turn your pain into purpose and just keep moving forward. If you have Our Family Wizard, that's another program that you can use. It has a little meter in there that tells you if you're being mean or what you're saying. It'll turn red the more things that you say. And so just be mindful if you're using one of those. They use those a lot to gauge your interaction with your ex. So just make sure that that meter stays off. You don't want a lot of red emails or texts or anything going back and forth. So along with all the advocacy that we're also doing, I went to about 40 something states also and testified in front of judiciary committees for your state. We were there, we had people come to the Capitol, meet us there, and then we would go in and talk to your legislators about this stuff. Don't go talk to your legislators unless you have a solution for your problem. Now, they know that there's plenty of people with problems. They can't solve your problems for you. A lot of people go to their legislators hoping they'll solve them. They don't know about this. Usually what I found is most of these legislators come from intact families, and they don't understand what divorce, I mean, they know what divorce is. They've never been through it though. And so they don't know the problems that you're going through, that you're, when they're hijacking your kids or false allegations or anything like that. They know these problems exist, but it's not important to them because it didn't happen to them. But I guarantee you, once it does happen to them, they are all about this. So, but these, just know that if you go to them, just make sure you take them a solution for any of the problems that you're having. There's a video out there on YouTube. It's called We the Parents. It's amazing for you to watch if you're going through family court. It's also for your families and friends because it gives you a glimpse in about 50 minutes of what family court is. There's parents in there. I'm one of the parents. It shows my journey, but it shows several other parents, and it's not just men. This happens to women. It happens to grandparents. There's even one of the parents in there is a lawyer, and they're fighting for other parents' time with their children when they can't even get it. And it shows you how biased the system is, and it explains kind of what you'll go through if you're going through this process. And it also shows your loved ones how they can support you by looking at what these other stories are. So that one's a very good one to do. Dr. Phil had found me on We the Parents, and I was just on his show a couple of weeks ago. And it was interesting because they were doing a segment about family court corruption. And once we got in there and we talked to them, they found us because of our stories. It was me and Rustin Wright. And once they started talking to us and saw that how much advocacy that I was doing and Rustin was doing, and changing laws and, doing all these things on social media. And so they want us back to do an episode just on our advocacy. So that's going to be amazing. We'll keep you tuned on that. The other thing that goes on with like the family court system is that they play a lot of games. When I got into family court, I thought, okay, the law is the law, and this is what they go by. After sitting there for 15 years, I'm pro se now, and I'm fighting all of my own lawsuits. Her attorneys are board certified, and I'm going against them, challenging what they're saying or alleging. And it's interesting because, and I'll show you, this is how they play games, is so one time I went in and they're trying to seal the court record, and I wanted it open because I wanted the public to see if there's any allegations against me later on that they could look into my case and see what happened. Well, my ex wanted to seal it. So when we went in, her attorney was arguing that it should be sealed for this reason, that reason, a bunch of other stuff. And her words were that she met her burden of proof and the record should be sealed. Thank God that I did my homework, because in Texas, according to Texas Family Code, blah, 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 and this is what I told the judge, that you had to meet 3 factors to meet your burden of proof. And she didn't meet all 3. She met 1 factor, but you had to have all 3 factors to seal a case. If I wouldn't have known that and told the judge that, then the judge wouldn't have known. She would have taken the lawyer's word, because she's, an officer of the court, that she would have taken her word that you could seal the record because she met her burden of proof. That's not true. Well, it's true, but not true. She met her burden of proof, which was 1 burden of proof, but she needed to meet all 3 to seal the case. So it's those kinds of games that are being played in court that give it a bad name, because this woman was board certified. She knew better than to tell the judge that, but yet it's not what she said, it's what she didn't say. And she didn't say that, there was 2 more burdens that she had to meet. Of course not. She's not going to tell on herself. But be careful for those games that are being played in court. There's all kinds of things. There's also support groups if you need support groups. There's a ton of them. Just type in parental alienation if that's what you're going through. You can type in family court. On Facebook's a really good one to type in stuff like that, because there's a lot of social media groups. There's Dad Talk Today support group that has about 50,000 followers. If you have issues with CPS, there's several groups that deal with CPS, and you could type in CPS corruption or CPS violations or something like that, and you'll pull up a lot of support groups. So whatever you're going through, there's groups for you. So don't do it alone. Another piece of advice I can give you is that when you're going through this, surround yourself with a lot of family and friends. You don't want to go through this alone at all. Make sure that if you're with a significant other, that you make sure that you take them out on dates, maybe once a week, because your significant other is going through this with you, and you don't want to just leave them out in the cold. And I know that you don't want to bother them with this or anything else, but they're going through it with you if they're living in your home. That's one thing me and my wife of 10 years now, we made sure that we have dates at least once a week, if not more. We'll go dancing, we'll go hiking, we'll go ride bikes, just something to get out of the house, get your mind off this stuff. It's very toxic and very poisonous. You don't want to go through it alone. So I think that's about all I have for you. Again, We the Parents, it's on YouTube, so go see it. I focus a lot on educating people on these subjects. Almost forgot this. One of the other big things that I get to do is, because of my advocacy, they've invited me to teach CLE classes, which are continuing law. I think it's CLE, continuing law education is what it stands for. And it's for lawyers and judges. I was just in Austin and got to speak to about 200 plus lawyers and judges about all the things that you're going through. you can go to my Facebook page and it's on there. I just posted it yesterday. And so you can see for about 30 minutes, I spoke to them and they were asking questions, and it's very informative, and it gives you a peek into what they're learning in these classes. And if you apply those things in your case, I think it'll help you a lot. But there's lots of pieces of gold in it. I was able to tell my story. I was able to tell why I had to change the law, and there was no need for me to change the law if they would have done what they were supposed to in the first place and followed the law. And they have discretion, but they should have used it and see what was going on after so many years and do something about it. I told them that, that the family courts, what's breeding all these advocates. If the law was so maybe if the law was maybe in the middle somewhere, plus or minus, 10 here, 10 there, then there wouldn't be all these issues that are happening, but it's not. It's very corrupt right now because of the games that are able to be played in those courtrooms. One last thing that I wanted to talk about is that Texans for Judicial Accountability, we're putting cameras in the courtrooms, or we're trying to pass legislation to put cameras in the courtroom. That way it protects the judges and the litigants both from anyone saying that there's things going on that there is or isn't going on. And that will clean up the system itself too. If you think about it, police used to have immunity also, and they took away their immunity and put body cams on them, and that cleaned up that system. So we're hoping that the same will happen to family court, is that we'll put cameras in the courtroom and hold judges to a higher standard instead of not having any standard at all. Because right now they have full immunity and they can pretty much do whatever they want and there's no consequences. So as long as there's accountability for everyone, then this is what will clean up the system, and this is what we're trying to accomplish. Well, thank you for your time, and turn your pain into purpose, and just follow me on social media, and we'll see you soon.
In next week's episode of Families Divided TV, Dr. Susan Heitler asks the question, will the real deserving parent please stand up?